Welcome to the Cool Tools Show. I'm Mark Frauenfelder, Editor-in-Chief of Cool Tools, a website of tool recommendations written by our readers. You can find us at cool-tools.org. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Kelly, founder of Cool Tools. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, it's great to be here.
In each episode of the Cool Tools Show, Kevin and I talk to a guest about some of his or her favorite uncommon and uncommonly good tools they think others should know about. Our guest this week is Jeremy Kirshbaum. Jeremy is a researcher, strategist, and entrepreneur. He splits his time between West Africa, China, and California, where he's from, partnering with people to build new things, innovate, and explore. He does this through action research, design, and a variety of creative media. He's a proud research affiliate at Institute for the Future, a research affiliate of the Shenzhen Open Innovation Lab, and a research fellow at the Johns Hopkins Immersive Storytelling and Immersive Media Lab, and works with large organizations of all kinds to innovate more efficiently and imaginatively. And I just have to say that Jeremy's one of the most interesting people I know, and he is always telling me about stuff that blows my mind. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast, Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to meet you, Jeremy. I'm looking forward to your suggestions.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, this first one is something that I probably should be a little bit mad at you about, because a couple of weeks ago you told me about this Gp2 language model, and it has not wasted, but consumed many hours when I should be doing other things. Tell us about it and why this thing is so incredible.
And where you get it also.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Gp2, which is sometimes called Transformer, is a AI algorithm that was released by OpenAI.org, and it very realistically mimics human language in a very natural way, based on a prompt, and it is probably one of the less useful tools that people have suggested on your podcast, but I've been trying to use it as a front end to research projects, because it basically is predicting the next most likely word in a sentence. It's a little bit like what you and me do when we're listening to each other, actually. If I'm talking to you, your brain is trying to guess the next thing that I'm going to say and make meaning out of it. And if suddenly I elephant, you feel something disjointed, you feel comedy, you feel anger, you feel frustration, you feel confusion. And the reverse of that process can be used to generate text.
So just so I have some idea. So this is an algorithm. Where would this algorithm run? Is this something that you run on your laptop? Is it something that runs on the web? Do you, is it a, big algorithm, small algorithm? Just give me a sense of the place where this is happening.
You can download it on GitHub, and the link is on the openai.org website. I downloaded it. The install instructions are really simple to use. I do run it in Terminal, but I've seen some people do
Terminal on your laptop.
Yes, so it has little commands that you type in. I wouldn't really call it coding. You just follow the instructions in the README file, and it allows you to tweak the algorithm to be more random or less random and enter your own custom prompts. So I've had it write some very interesting essays, some science fiction stories about the connection between China and Nigeria in 2040, all kinds of weird stuff. And the full algorithm that they developed actually isn't available because they felt it was too realistic in terms of producing text that looked like it was written by a human, and they were worried about its malicious intent. But they've released a kind of scaled down algorithm for you to use. I've also seen some websites where people run it in a cloud and you can type it and it's a little bit faster and a little bit less customized.
Okay, so this is some code that you download into your laptop of some sort, and then you can apply that like an app or a piece of software. You can input, and what's the input that you give into it to generate these things?
The input.
You have to train it. My understanding of AIs and neural nets in general is that you need to train them first.
It's pre-trained, right? It was like
it's pre-trained.
Yeah, so this was trained on a really, really big data set, like 40 gigabytes of internet text, which they selected by taking links out of Reddit with at least 3 karma. So that was a kind of like hack they did to improve the data quality, I guess. And although I'm not sure that biasing your AI for Reddit is ever really a good idea, but yeah. So it's pre-trained. You don't have to do that work, and I mean, thank goodness, because I've seen some really interesting articles about the amount of money and, in fact, energy usage it would take to train a model of that size. But for the purposes of people listening to it, you go to the link, you download it. There's a file in there called developer.md. You open that up and you follow the instructions, and you're off and running. You don't really have to do much in terms of designing or anything like that. And you then put in whatever kind of prompt you want. I've found that longer prompts produce higher quality stuff than shorter prompts. And the things it produces are very uneven in the sense that you might have to try 2 or 3 or 5 times before you get something really interesting.
Yeah, you get a different output for every input because it's probabilistic, right? So it's going to branch, and you'll get completely different stuff. And I'm sorry for interrupting, Jeremy, because it's your thing, but since I've been playing with it too, I mean, the thing that like surprises me is you put in a prompt. Like one thing, I went to a website that has like the best 50 opening paragraphs from novels of all time, and I'll like just try like Kafka's The Metamorphosis. And one time you'll get like a story. Another time you might get like what looks like a CNN transcript. Another time you might get like a fake bibliography. You found those before. That's like book titles that have never existed by authors that have never existed. It's like really surprising. And oh my God, like where is this coming from?
Okay, so this is a way for someone to play around with AI. This is one of the kind of things that people say, well, yeah, AI, can I mess around with it? Well, here is a way that you can mess around with AI today.
Absolutely. And I've been trying to find ways to use it usefully in a non-experimental way, because I'm afraid that what this will actually be used for in a practical setting is just generating incredible amounts of maliciously intended fake political information and gibberish until the internet is just totally unusable and we all kind of just collapse into our own realities. And I would like to find something different than that to do with it. And what I found basically is that the information it gives is not very reliable. For instance, it will often quote professors that don't exist at universities that don't exist, but its analysis often is reliable. So with quite a bit of fact checking, I can read you something that I actually used in a report that I'm writing right now about the future of work in the humanitarian sector.
Please.
So this was produced based on a prompt that I gave it. It says, do not believed. So Dunant is the kind of lead philosopher of the humanitarian sector. He outlined a lot of the basis of a lot of the principles we think of when we think of humanitarianism and helping someone in an institution because they happen to be a human. Dunant believed in the development of human beings is a process of evolution rather than an immutable pattern, and that the development of humans is based on a combination of educational, cultural factors and economic and political factors. The Dunantist belief is that human development is not merely a socially determined but rather that the development of individuals depends on the factors that have shaped human beings, and that these can be changed by the individual. So it's interesting because, slight grammar mistakes aside, that is a pretty good analysis of Dunant's beliefs. It is completely original writing. You can run it through whatever plagiarism check that you want. And it also was...
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. Even like sentence fragments of stuff get 0 hits on search results.
Yeah, it didn't crib that from somewhere. It actually wrote it word by word. And so I'm now using it in this report. I'm not clear whether I need to list it as a co-author, but I'm on the side of, I'm on the side of no, that I don't need to, because I don't need to list my paintbrush as a co-author or a co-producer of a painting that I make, no matter how fancy it is.
I think we're headed to a point of like total labeling and full disclosures. I think it was somewhere, this passed a law, I think in California, that you have to disclose if you're a bot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. On a call or anything, that if you're not a bot. So we're kind of a little specious right now, where we're going to really discriminate against non-humans. But I'm pro information. So I think that's pretty cool. So tell us about another tool that you have. This one is called Universal Copy. Tell me about that one.
I have a quick question on what you just said, Kevin, which is how many times do I have to make a mistake on the CAPTCHA before I admit I'm a robot?
Yeah, I know.
Is it 10 times? And then
the problem with the CAPTCHAs is that I can't solve them anymore.
Yeah. Well, does that?
My problem is like it's like I'm failing them. I do it again and again. I can't see. What is that? I can't see it.
Yeah.
So it's like the only people that can solve it are the robots.
Prove you're not a human.
It's a reverse CAPTCHA.
Yeah. It's so true.
If you solve this, then you're not a human.
Imagine.
Well, actually, the whole idea of actually having they're doing something where they actually. The thing about it is like AIs and self-driving cars and artificial perceptions will have ways to fool them that a human can't even see. So they were kind of hacking self-driving cars because they could give them signals and things that humans can't see, but would fool an AI. And so they have these adversarial, GANs where they can make optical illusions that only work on AIs. They don't work on humans.
Wow.
So there's going to be a whole kind of like arms race in terms of fooling AIs when no human would be fooled, vice versa.
It's amazing.
So, that's incredible. I can imagine that being this really disturbing short story or something where it's like Kafka's Metamorphosis, but it starts with a man being unable to not solve a CAPTCHA and going on this journey of finding out he's actually an algorithm.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so what's your second tool? Universal Copy. Tell us about that.
I was looking over the Cool Tools podcast before coming on, and I noticed that the more impressive the person, the simpler the tools, and that all of my tools were really fancy and experimental. So that for my own self-esteem, I should include something practical. And so this is Universal Copy. It is a downloadable app for Android, available on the Google Play Store, and it is
Android. So it's a phone. It's a phone app.
It's a phone app, yes. And it does something really simple and amazing, which is that it allows you to copy text, any text on your screen, including within apps on clickable buttons. And this is a big problem for me because when I'm in China.
So I'm on an iPhone, so I don't know. Does iPhone have that built in? Because it seems to me that I can cut and paste, or maybe I can't as much as I think I can. Did you happen to know what the status of the iPhone is? I
was doing some searching around, and I wasn't able to find a version of Universal Copy for iPhone, but I suspect there might be something in the accessibility settings you could tweak or something.
Okay.
Or, you could just switch to Android.
Well, but the point is that we think but we think that the iPhone can't universally copy. Is that probably true?
I don't think so. And
Okay.
just the way to test it is to go into an app, because you think about when you're in an app, as soon as you click on it to copy the text, it presses the button that you're trying to copy. And so when I'm in places that are not English facing, especially China, but also particularly in some places that use a lot of Arabic language, places that don't have good English translation or the translation for them don't really exist, I can use Universal Copy to navigate through the app. So if I'm in China and I desperately need to order a pizza and 20 fidget spinners to my apartment at 3 a.m., I can go on Ulama and Taobao and use this combined with Google or Microsoft Translate in order to figure out how to do it. And
so you are using the copy to copy the Chinese characters from one place and then pasting it into Google Translate and then copying that back out and putting the English into the place that you need to input. I mean, that's what you mean by using it to translate. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I would copy the Chinese characters into Google Translate and then look at what the English says and then type in the English answer and translate it back into Chinese and then put it back into the section. And my Mandarin's getting good enough that I'm thankfully needing it less and less, but still a huge, huge survival component of my life here in China.
That's great. So I like that you can copy the text off of buttons. That's really good.
Right. And also if there's if you're looking at a form, often it will have a grayed out, very faintly written text that disappears as soon as you put the cursor there. And you can also copy things like that. Totally anything on your screen.
That's super useful.
And it's copying in terms of like an OCR. It's not just taking a picture of it. It's actually copying the ASCII.
Yes, it's actually accessing the text itself. And it does have some OCR tools and things like that. But in most cases, it's actually copying the text.
That's a good one.
Well, great. And that's Android version for your Androids.
And I'll try to look around for an iOS version too.
Yeah. The iOS may or may not exist, but I haven't been able to find it. But it works great for Android, and I suggest it for anyone traveling.
Do you find yourself using either Baidu or Google Translate, the spoken version in China a lot?
I do not personally use the spoken version very often because I'm not able to verify the quality of the output in a direct way. And I like to practice my Mandarin when possible. So if I'm going to be speaking, I'd rather just force our way through it using human language. I find that the best translator right now, although Google Translate is quite good, is Microsoft Translate. And I don't really know why that is. I would suspect it's because of partnerships with WeChat, because that would give them access to a very, very large conversational database of spoken Chinese and written Chinese. And so within WeChat, there's an embedded translator. So if you're communicating in text, that's Microsoft Translate.
Okay.
Okay.
So this next one, Jeremy, is so awesome. I loved it. This is something that you discovered a couple of years ago, I think. It's called the Token Factory.
The Token Factory. Yeah, I love this tool. It's a great little tool for instantly or in about 20 minutes creating your own crypto token or cryptocurrency. And and it's very fast. It takes zero coding. It's all UI based, and it does cost about like 10 or 15 bucks to deploy the contract onto Ethereum, but it's cheaper than all of your other automated cryptocurrency creators, I'm sure. And it's just great if you left the house, you remember that you were supposed to disrupt an industry that day and you don't have a lot of time, and you can just hop online and deploy the technological infrastructure for it, although the other parts of it might take, longer.
Right. So what does that mean when you have a private cryptocurrency? I thought the whole point of a cryptocurrency was that it was shareable, public. I mean, what does that even mean? I'm not really sure what that means.
Well, this is a public crypto token. It is what's known as an ERC20 token. So it's a standard format token that runs on Ethereum. So anyone with an Ethereum wallet, and Ethereum is one of the kind of larger blockchains, and anyone with an Ethereum wallet can then have your crypto token if you send it to them.
What's the difference between it and just an Ethereum coin? I mean, what's the difference?
The Ethereum token is the internal token for the Ethereum network, and the token that you create is your token. You actually would need to have a little bit of Ethereum token as well in order to pay the Ethereum network to move your token around. So that's the major difference, is that with the Ethereum token, you can use it to pay the Ethereum network to do things for you, like deploy contracts or, and what I mean by deploy a contract is basically publicly listing this set of code that says, this is a token, there's these many tokens in this token set, and there can never be more or less, and they move around according to these rules. And those rules on Token Factory make it automatically compatible with certain Ethereum wallets. And you then use Ethereum token to help you move it around. The important part is that, and this is, kind of the real message with a lot of these technologies, but blockchain especially, is that the token is permanent and immutable and relatively indestructible once you create it, but it's useless until you invent something to do with it. So I, for instance, created Jeremy Coin, which is my personal currency. It is pegged to 50,000 Jeremy Coin to 4 hours of my time. And so whatever that's worth to you. And you can only mine Jeremy Coin by knowing me personally. So the more that I trust you, the more Jeremy Coin you get. So unbeknownst to the both of you, you're actually mining a cryptocurrency this entire podcast, which was Jeremy Coin, because I feel more trustworthy of you the longer I'm talking to you. And if you wanted to recoup that, if you had an Ethereum wallet, you could let me know and I would send over the Jeremy Coin that you earned. And then you could either spend it hiring me to do things, or if you know other people in my network who also value my time, you could just trade with them directly.
And I'm still, is it like a vanity license plate where, license plate does the same thing, but one of them has, it's personalized, but they're really not doing anything different. Is there anything that you could do with a personal cryptocurrency that you can't do with Ethereum?
You can make your own rules for it, whereas with Ethereum, you have to use their rules.
And what would be an example of making your own rule?
Well, for instance, Jeremy control 98% of all Jeremy coins that exist. So I'm the central bank of Jeremy Coin. And because of that, I'm able to personally manage the value, the vast value in my network.
Oh, you mean so you can do like currency manipulation? You could raise the price really high if you wanted.
I am insulted that you would suggest that I would ever do that. But theoretically, were I not a responsible steward of my vast network, I could do that.
Or you could completely wipe out the currency. Okay, so but it sounds like it would be a good educational tool, at least for understanding how cryptocurrencies work.
Right, and if you have, so for me, I'm just myself, and my potential network of value or access points for value exchange are relatively limited. But if you have a company or a network or something into which a lot of value is already exchanged and through which value is exchanged, and you want to tokenize it and create some kind of storable record of that value that's reliable, then you could use it very practically. I mean, it's as valuable or not valuable as any other crypto token. So I'm sure different people have different opinions about what that would mean.
So Jeremy, I'm seeing on Etherscan 2 different Jeremy coins. One's Jcoin and the other is JKC. Are either of those yours?
Both of those are mine. JKC is a legacy version of Jeremy coin that is as valuable as Beanie Babies. I mean, that's the thing, is that once you create them, they never go away ever. So they're there. They're on a wallet to which I've lost access somewhere, and they exist, but no one can ever access them. But the current version of Jeremy coin, the J coin, is active, and that's the one I'm currently using.
And what do you use it for?
People can use it to get me to do things, the same way that you would pay me money. And there's a very terrible social media site we made for it that on a couple of occasions people have used to interact with each other in my network when they didn't know each other directly, personally. I would call Jeremy coin somewhere between a real project and a performance art piece about creating trusted networks, or networks that enhance trust instead of trustless networks, which I think are a terrible idea. Mm-hmm. Like, didn't we have enough excuses to not trust each other without embedding it into our technologies? Mm-hmm. And so it is not like an incredibly active network. I just bring it up because it's an example of how someone could use Token Factory. It's a particularly kind of like self-indulgent and self-absorbed way of using it. If you had something,
are there other examples? I mean, I'm assuming you're not the only one who's using it. What are some of the other examples of others who have used Token Factory?
I honestly have no way of knowing. I mean, there are many ERC, many Ethereum tokens. There's entire companies based around them. I mean, it's hard to tell because of all the hype and tokens becoming more valuable. It's hard to tell like which of those have any inherent value and which don't. But any ERC20 token could have potentially been created on Token Factory, although there's no real way of knowing.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, there's no marker.
And do they? You say that they charge something to? How is Token Factory a business making money, or?
No. Token Factory is not charging money. You just have to. You have to pay anything that's done on Ethereum. So Ethereum. Let me back up a little bit. Ethereum is a special kind of blockchain. It is a computer. It is a digital Turing machine that is held together by blockchain. And so because it is a computer, it can perform computations. And some of those computations might be things like listing a set of code, and which they call like smart contracts. And so listing that code, in listing that code, you have to incentivize someone somewhere to host that set of code for you. And you do that by paying them in Ethereum tokens. And the amount of Ethereum tokens that you need to incentivize someone to host your token contract comes out to about the equivalent of 10 to 15 US dollars. So you don't really know who you're paying. You're probably paying someone who owns some kind of server or set of computers in China that's mining Ethereum tokens in order to host that. And so it's not actually money that you're paying the token factory. It's Ethereum tokens that you would buy to incentivize the network, which you put that up and it's distributed. There's no central Ethereum company. So you put up basically this amount of Ethereum token as a bid. And then if you put up more tokens, then it takes a very short amount of time for someone to agree to host your contract. And if the amount is lower, it can take a much longer time or never for someone to agree to it. And in that way, this distributed computer continues to run and continues to incentivize people to run copies of it, essentially. I think the beauty of Token Factory is that you don't need to know any of that. You just put in Ethereum tokens and out comes your tool.
So it's kind of like an open source app that somebody made and put out?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was made by some folks at Consensus, which is a for-profit blockchain company, but they're very experimental and have a lot of really fun, smart people working there. And it looks like something that they put out because they realized they could and thought it would be fun.
There's no about or anything. It's just create token contract, interact with token contract. That's it. You don't get to know anything else.
So I wrote a detailed blog post about how to do it. If people want to check that out, it's on.
Yeah, we'll link to that. That would be maybe helpful. So Jeremy, you have a fourth pick for us. Can you describe the structure sensor?
Structure sensor. It is a 3D scanner that attaches to an iPad, and you can take 3D scans of whatever you want. It links up to different applications, and so you can get higher or lower quality scans depending on the tool that you're using.
And the kinds of things that you can scan, is this where you're standing and you have to twirl around? If it's you say it's an iPad, so it's a single thing. It's not like you have a 360 array of cameras that are all going to take a picture of every dimension. This is something where there's one point of view and you have to spin or rotate, or do you have to walk around in a circle? How does that work?
Well, let's say you're scanning a chair. So you would there's two cameras in the structure sensor, and then it uses the iPad's sensor and infrared. And you would walk around the chair and you would try and get it from every single angle. So you would try and get under the chair. You would try and get over the chair. You pause every once in a while so that it takes photos so it can map color onto it afterward. So basically, it doesn't matter which order you do it in, but it needs to be able to view every part of what you're trying to scan.
Right, so like maybe 10 minutes, you're walking around trying to take from every possible angle you can imagine, and then it stitches all those together into like a 360 view?
It stitches them into a 3D object. So
3D object.
Yeah. So then I do a lot of art in virtual reality for fun, love, and profit. And I will take these 3D scans and put them into virtual reality so that if you were wearing a headset, you could then walk around them. Or if you do 3D animation, you can use them in the same way, and any other way that you'd use a 3D model for three-dimensional art or animation. I happen to use it for virtual reality.
And let's say you use this little device, which is about the size of how big is the device?
Maybe like a small banana or a TV remote.
So take the banana, and you tether it to an iPad, and you're going around and you're compiling this document, this image, this file, and so does it, and you're doing a chair, does it then isolate the chair at the end so it subtracts it from the background, or is that something that's just in the AI software itself, or do you have to then manually indicate what it is that you want to model?
Different. So the structure sensor is actually a hardware device that hooks up to a lot of different types of apps. My favorite app does isolate an object as automatically as possible. There are a lot of really high quality professional ones that'll get you scientifically looking, very high quality scans. I actually don't like using those because I like using imprecise scans because they look like paint or clay. And my major use for it is artistic, not scientific. So I want things that are like beautifully imprecise. And I'm often using it out in the field, which is why that I love that it attached to an iPad. So for instance, I made an experience about an area of Shenzhen, the city that I'm now in, called Dafen Oil Painting Village, which is this kind of beautiful section of the city where they make about 50% of the commercial art in the world. But it's outside, it's beautiful. There's kids running around, there's cafes, and they're, mass producing incredible amounts of art. So there's just piles of art everywhere. And so in China, they don't mind if you awkwardly stand behind them and scan them for 8 minutes while they're painting. And there's a trade-off with the scanner. Things that move, it doesn't do well with at all. So if something is still, the longer you do it, the clearer it gets. If something is moving, the longer you do it, the less clear it gets. And they come out looking really painterly and ghostly. And I think it's really evocative. And I actually think that the imprecision of the tool to me is as important as the precision, because in art, as opposed to science, no one's waiting around for them to make. No one's sitting around like, oh, I'll get into clay when it's more efficient and easier to use. No one's sitting around like, oh, violins, like they're too expensive. The hardware is too expensive and they take too long to learn. Like the point of art is much different than the point of science. And the fact that things are hard or are imprecise is as much an asset as a challenge. And so I think that you can hook it up to robots or put it in your self-driving whatever. And I think it is actually meant more for those kind of applications. But I think it's also perfect for my use as making terrible immersive art that no one looks at.
So the sensor is about $400, and then you would need the mapping, the scanning software that would be running on an iPad as well, or do you render it on a desktop or a laptop?
It can run on either. The app that I use is actually free, so you can buy whatever
What app do you use?
I just use the structure, the free app that comes with the device. Actually, there's a professional grade tool that I use sometimes called Sconnect that goes with it, where it actually links to a laptop computer, so it has more processing power. Mm-hmm. And the models are much better, but they become so gigantically large so quickly that for my use, which is putting it into a game design software called Unity in order to make weird immersive art, it becomes much less useful.
So is Unity kind of like the equivalent of Photoshop for 3D, where you can kind of take these little scans that you've made and you can sort of assemble, put together collages, or do blending and that kind of stuff? Is that what Unity would be used for?
I would actually say that the equivalent of Unity for 3D models would be some tools called Blender or Maya, and those are directly for 3D model editing or animation. For Unity, you're adding interaction, and so that's kind of like Photoshop for game design.
Yeah, my daughter Jane uses Unity quite a bit in conjunction with C# to make games.
I see. Okay, so it's not really the Photoshop for 3D editing. That's you say Blender or the other one.
Blender is free and a little bit harder to use, and Maya is quite expensive. And I haven't had time to learn it, but I'm sure it's better if you have the use for it.
So you mentioned Dafan, the village, a painting village. That actually is a cool tool in itself. The way that they work is that you can give them an assignment. Basically, they'll paint anything. And if you really want to have, like, if you want to own a Picasso or Matisse or anything, you can have them paint one for you. That's really pretty good. And the way that they do it is that you give them 50%, and then they send you a photograph of the completed drawing of painting, whatever it is, and you pay the rest, and then they ship you the rolled up canvas. So they actually have quite a system going. So they work remotely very, very well. And that's sort of what their business is. But they will really, they can make beautiful copies of anything that you want.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and these days they do both copies and originals. Although I do have a funny story about working with them remotely, which wasn't really their fault, but is kind of like a fun metaphor for manufacturing supply chain in general, which is that my aunt wanted a replica of Warhol. They have a lot of Warhols there anyway. And so I sent to my contact there the Warhol that's the 10 pictures of Marilyn Monroe in a row. And I said, can you do this? How fast, et cetera? And he sent me back a price. And it was a little bit high, but he was my friend. So I was like, okay, like, sure, I guess you need a little bit extra margin. And I found out why when a few weeks later, I got 10 full-sized individual Marilyn Monroes instead of one with 10 on them. So.
Oh, my God. That's funny. Wow. Jeremy, we're basically out of time for this, but I just wanted to quickly let people know that you have you're the CEO of something called Ansible. So tell us just a little bit about that as a way to kind of close off the show.
Right. In general, we are trying to figure out how to invest into illiquid frontier markets. We have a major focus on Nigeria right now, and a lot of our work is connecting Nigerian companies, particularly hardware companies, to talent, design, production, and resources in China. But I'm interested in connecting with anyone who has experience or clues about how to work with, innovate, get capital into, invest properly in high potential illiquid frontier markets, especially Nigeria.
And people can find out more about Ansible by going to Ansible.group, right?
They can, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Jeremy, I wish we could have talked to you more about how you have completely gotten off or never gotten on in the first place to social media, and how that, well, just give us your 30 seconds on why you don't do social media.
My head is clear. I've lost a ton of anxiety. I'm not constantly inundated by large amounts of low quality information. It's the equivalent of having switched from eating tons of candy every day and getting my nutrients that way to eating fewer higher quality meals.
Okay. And social media, do we mean the kind of the Trinity, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but do you get texting? Do you text people? And, and do you do blogging? Do you read blogs? Are they social media too? I'm just wondering, just clarifying what we mean by that.
Right. Yeah. I do group texting. So I have WhatsApp and WeChat. But nothing with scrolling, nothing with public posting except for my website.
And you also don't really read news either, right?
Oh gosh, no. I think that reading the news is one of the fastest ways to become completely uninformed about what's happening. And
no, I know a better way. A better way is to watch the news on TV. that leads to insanity even faster. Reading, actually, you have a chance to retain some element, but if you watch on cable news, then that's it.
Right. Well, the new newscaster they have, GPT-2, does seem pretty convincing. So.
All right. Well, Jeremy, thanks. This has been great talking to you, and we could easily have you on again soon if we can pin you down wherever you are in the world.
It's my pleasure, Mark and Kevin, and thanks so much for your time.